Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Game Over Ottawa. Maude here, back once again. Unfortunately, pretty depressed tonight after a rough game for the Sens, but I'm happy to have two guests joining me today. We've got Phil Sens and Brandon from Sens Talk. How are you guys doing tonight?
How are you doing? Thanks for having us on.
Yes, doing great.
I'm sure doing great other than what we just watched, eh?
I mean, look, when in the first 25 minutes of play, you give up 4 goals, especially when you're out shooting the opponent, it's not going to be the greatest game. And that's what we got again today. And, we'll talk about it a lot, I'm sure, today. But the fact that multiple times this game, we saw the repeated defensive lapses we've seen throughout the last few years, net front coverage being blown, bad starts, goals in the last minute. I mean, it's the Senator, the classic Senator game today is what we saw, unfortunately.
Yep, exactly. Going down 3-1 in the first isn't the way to go. I think we've had some bad lucks, but still, like you said, it's defensive coverage. You can't just blame the goalie. I know we have injuries, but defensive coverage just hasn't been good. It has to get better.
Yeah, for
Great.
sure. We'll get into all that and more. I just also got to point out that unfortunately we don't have a Game Over Winnipeg stream tonight. So if there are any Winnipeg fans joining us in the chat, be sure to let us know what you thought of tonight's game. Maybe a bit from a Jets perspective too, because it's mostly Sens-centric here from the three of us. But we'd love to hear what you guys think as well. And of course, any Sens fans in the chat too. Now, before we really get into the game, I'd just like to thank our sponsor, Sports Interaction. Think you know which way it's going to go? Make your bet with Sports Interaction. Whether it's hockey, football, or basketball, Sports Interaction has you covered. Bet pre-game, live, in play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/STPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/STPN. 19 plus, please play responsibly. Now, I have to say, the way that the Jets season has gone has me a little bit jealous, because I feel like if you looked at the Sens and Jets rosters at the start of the season and compared to the two, honestly, we might be biased, but would either of you say that you would have thought that the Jets would be this much better than the Sens?
I think goaltending is key. I bet on a bounce back season from Connor Hellebuck, and that's what we're seeing. Obviously, we didn't see him tonight. He's dealing with a flu or something, but yeah, I'm not shocked because goaltending wins you games. That's why I was fired up to have Forsberg and Talbot, brought into the fold, right? That's huge. A team with good goaltending, more often than not, is going to win games. Now, unfortunately for Ottawa, we've been having good goaltending. Top 10, they're not winning games. Winnipeg, on the other hand, Riddick played well tonight, but Hellebuck's had a hell of a season. And their offense, I mean, Kyle Connor's a guy that can really put the puck in the back of the net. And they're doing this without a guy like Nick Ehlers, for example, right? That's a great talent there. So, obviously, we're biased. I think Ottawa, at the beginning of the year, in my opinion, had one of the best top sixes in the league. And that definitely could still be the case when Stützle and Norris return. But I'm not really shocked. Once again, goaltending, especially when you have one of the best goalies in the league, you always have a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I mean, our goaltending, I was really excited having that tandem of Forsberg and Talbot. Forsberg just had an incredible season, just didn't have the team in front of him. Now you bring in an all-star goalie, you bring in more players to actually improve the team in front, and it doesn't seem to work out that well. They've been very inconsistent. Sometimes it's from game to game, even sometimes it's like during a game. I remember Forsberg against Dallas, I think, had a couple weak goals, but overall had a good game. But you still lose the game. So goaltending definitely is the key. But also tonight, when I was looking at the lineup, I was more focused on the three centers. You have Scheifele, Dubois, and Lowry against Brassard, Kastelik, and Pinto. Like that's tough. You're not going to win many games in that matchup.
That's a great point because both teams are suffering injuries right now, but our injuries are a lot tougher, I would say, with the top two centers. I would like, obviously Hellebuck's sick and Ehlers has been out for a while, and I think Wheeler just got injured too. So those are big losses, but losing wingers is easier to deal with than losing centers for sure. And I think that was a big problem for the Sens, actually through the last few games now, and just in terms of their 5-on-5 play, because the power play has been able to carry us for a while, but this center lineup is just really struggling, and I'm hoping to see Timmy back in the next game.
I'll say this. Shout out to Primetime Sens for putting that stat out or that graphic out. But we saw Claude Giroux, and in this order, Giroux, Kastelik, and Pinto, top 20, all three of them, top 20 in the NHL for faceoff percentage.
Mm-hmm.
So it is surprising to me that we are still struggling. Pinto and that second line, they're the only ones that got on the board today. But that second line's been great. Kastelik, other than winning faceoffs, pretty invisible on the ice, which is surprising because I was a big fan of Kastelik and Kelly going into the season. I thought they were going to be the next great fourth line guys for Ottawa, and they very well still can be. Parker Kelly had a great game today, 3 shots on net. But my issue really is the bottom 6 as a whole. You can look at the centers, but the bottom 6 they can't keep up. That's just the reality. Rourke Chartier, the fourth line center, he looked good. So the centers, in my opinion, are playing fine. The wingers, they're getting boxed out. They're not keeping up with the play. And most importantly, they're losing their man, whether it's Brassard the other day, and that's obviously a bad example because he's a center, but Brassard the other day losing his man out front, where you have, of course, Watson just losing his zone on, I think, that 4th or 5th goal. And then you have Batherson on the 2nd or 3rd. For whatever reason, you have Morrissey right here. You have all this open ice, and he's along the boards, just allowing him to get right there. I don't understand what he's doing there. So defensively, of course, we could talk about all the structure errors there. But our forwards, our wingers, you got to play your position better defensively because they're letting a lot of offensive chances for the other team.
Yep, exactly. And I feel like they're actually playing their fourth line role, but on the third line, which, I mean, it does make it harder. And you need a solid third line to be a successful NHL team. We don't have that right now. A guy like Derek Brassard was supposed to be like him and Gambrell switching from games to games on the fourth line. Now he's your first line center. It hurts. It really hurts our depth. At least we've seen guys like DeBrincat and Batherson step up with all those big injuries. So that's good. That's a good thing to see. But we need those guys back desperately.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. And Brandon, you mentioned Josh Morrissey. I do have to shout him out for how much he absolutely destroyed the Sens tonight on a couple of those goals. That slap pass was absolutely ridiculous. That looked like some vintage Erik Karlsson stuff right there. And definitely want to give big credit to Josh Morrissey for any Winnipeg fans that are watching us tonight, because he has somehow passed his career high in points in only 32 games. He's got 38 points, and that's already over his entire career high. Like, I have to say that I don't think Jets fans even saw that coming. So that really amazing season happened from him. Like, other than Hellebuck, he's got to be their MVP right there, I think.
Yep. I got to keep track with NHL much more. I did not know Morrissey was going off like that. Holy cow.
Absolutely.
He's actually
38 points.
Second in defenseman points, I think.
Yeah,
second,
probably right behind Karlsson, eh? That's
exactly.
ridiculous.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
It's unbelievable.
They call him Josh Norrisy.
Oh my God.
I was seeing that. I thought it was a little cringe, but now I understand why they were saying
now
it.
It makes sense. Yeah,
now
for
it makes,
sure.
Yeah. That makes sense. That's crazy. 38 points.
Yeah, just amazing stuff from him. And the Sens couldn't contain him tonight. Just he was bringing the offense from the blue line.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that goes back to my argument about the wingers along the boards, especially in their defensive zone. The centers, they're blocking through the middle, right? The wingers have to clog the lane for the defenseman, get your stick in the way. Batherson, of course, is a bad example. He got walked, but just in general, they're not blocking the shots really out front there, unless you're looking more at the hash mark zone where a Watson or whatever it's getting down to block it. They're letting these players, these defensemen, really walk in too much. You saw it on that first one, I think. I think it was the first one, bar in past Talbot left side. But the point is this. The players on the opposing team continually walk in on the Ottawa Senators, whether that's going out front of the net, where the Ottawa Senators break down, allow a pass from behind the net or from the side of the net right through the middle to the guy in front of the net, or it's a guy from the blue line coming in. Either way, us in the defensive zone, it's a circus out there. It's embarrassing.
It is. They make it look so easy for their opponent. Like, they're just walking through the offensive zone and they're pretty much doing whatever they want. And if it's not the defenseman making the mistakes, it's going to be, like you said, the forwards, the wingers, not covering their men properly and just not being in the right position, just looking around, looking at the passes, and then boom, it's in your net. It's defensive coverage. It's the issue.
I remember there was
We've been
one play that didn't result in a goal that was particularly shocking to me, where all of the Jets forwards, like they had already had the puck in the zone, all the Jets forwards went off for a change at the same time, and whoever the Jets' right defenseman was, I can't even remember who it was. It's like just some random guy, not even one of their top players. He got the puck like at his position at the blue line on the right hand side, got it from his defense partner, and like I said, every Jets forward was leaving the ice to change, and we had all 5 of our guys back in the zone, and this guy literally was able to just skate in from the right point and get all the way in on goal on Talbot and get a chance. Like that stuff just can't happen. Like absolutely ridiculous with the defensive zone tonight.
I'll be honest with you, it's really odd because obviously Ottawa has had a long history of defensive error in their own zone, right? But in terms of board battles and, blocking the lanes along the boards, I give credit to DJ Smith and his system for this. More often than not, they do a very good job at locking down the boards and blocking any passes around the boards. So I don't really know what happened tonight, especially off 2 days of rest. I don't get it. I don't know why they were so flat. It doesn't really make much sense to me. And I think my only excuse for the team for being so flat in the second half of the game is the fact they were down by 4 or 3, I guess, if you include the Batherson one, down 4-1, 25 minutes into the game. I mean, it's very unlikely, especially after Minnesota on Sunday, where they tried that comeback. It's very unlikely you're going to come back. So, once again, and I tweeted this out. I want to point this out here. Ottawa, this was one of their game in hands. This is one of the games that Ottawa actually had to win. We say we have to win this game, blah, 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 blah. But this was actually one of those games we had to take advantage of because this was the game in hand we had on the Islanders and Washington and the Rangers. Those teams were chasing. Squandered opportunity. Didn't even get a point. So Ottawa not only now has to get 2 wins in a row to get back to 500, but they have to get 2-3 plus more wins just to get back in that conversation because of that, game in hand loss that they got today. So that's definitely something I haven't seen a lot of conversation about, but I think that's the biggest takeaway in my opinion is a squandered opportunity when you had the game in hand.
Yep. In the position we are right now, we just cannot afford to come out flat like this with zero energy and especially lose the game. I mean, we get a 4-game win streak. We're kind of back into it. Then you lose 2 and it's 2. I mean, it's bad games. Minnesota and this game were, I think, 5-2 and 5-1. The 4-2 and 5-1. Just
4-2, 5-1.
Really, not really any energy and pushback from the boys, and we're back at being last in the Atlantic. It's still a close race, but we can't be such a streaky team and win 4 and then lose a bunch. We have to stop being streaky and actually win a bunch of games in a row.
Yeah, it's wild after how such a good month of December overall so far. Like they showed during the game we're still 8th in the Atlantic. Like it's just ridiculous. All of that, and we barely made up any ground. And like you guys were saying, those games in hand are super important too, especially because we're chasing teams like Washington. They've just kept winning, and then we're playing them next. So that's going to be even bigger of a game than these last 2. Yeah. But like after a lot of wins in a row, like I can excuse a couple losses, but it's just the way that we lost these 2 games. Like I fully expected a loss against Minnesota, on the back-to-back. Mm-hmm. But just the fact that now after 2 straight games where we've gone down by 3 goals, like relatively early in the game, it was 3-0 halfway through the game against Minnesota, and then 4-1 like a minute into the second period in this game. It's just rough, and it's like you can expect some losses after a lot of wins, but we need to be seeing more than that for the team to give us any hope here.
Yeah, I think the problem is we're getting complacent with mediocrity. I think I've been talking about this in my videos the last couple of years, but the biggest concern you can have as a franchise is not the fact that you're going to lose games. That's going to happen, like you just said. It's about accepting those losses and not getting upset about those losses, the apathy, the acceptance of mediocrity. And we've already seen that throughout the fan base, let alone the locker room. I mean, I'm not in that locker room. I'm not a player in that locker room. I'm certainly not a coach in that locker room, so I don't want to act like I know what's happening there. But it's kind of hard to not read between the lines here where it's been the same story defensively for the last 4 or 5 years, and the results have not changed, even with a vastly better lineup. And once again, Norris and Susula are out, but you still got the breakout there. I mean, there's still pieces here that you should be producing. So, look, Ottawa, it's an interesting conundrum that they're in because, once again, they put these expectations on themselves. They're the ones that said to the fan base, we're out of the we're out of the rebuild. We're going to the playoff phase of this quote unquote rebuild. That was last year before last season. We're now 2 years or a year and a half past that, and we're still talking how do we get out of the basement. So once again, I love DJ Smith. I think he's a really cool guy, but is he the right coach for this team? And that's kind of where I'm steering this conversation. I'm sorry, because I don't know. I mean, when you see games like this where there's literally no excuse to lose in the fashion they did, it makes you really question it, right?
That's actually where I was going to go next. What do you think about that, Phil, about DJ Smith?
Yeah, what's that?
I feel like it's kind of been long enough. I mean, he's been there for a while, like a long time. A lot of top NHL coaches don't last that long, and I can understand like he's good with the kids, he's good with the young players. So through a rebuild, that's actually a good coach to have. But now that we're actually trying to step out of this rebuild and trying to be a competitive team every single year and trying to have success, you need maybe a coach that has a bit more experience. And just I feel like having a new face, a new leader, a new game plan can do a lot for a team. We're seeing I think Bonus right now with the Jets. I think he just came in, and that's been working very well so far. Even Marty St. Louis last year with the Habs. It can really impact a team, and I feel like it's time to make a change, but I doubt it'll happen before new ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I mean, at this point, if they haven't fired DJ Smith by now, he's not getting fired. I mean, that doesn't make much sense at this point, right? Yep. So I have to agree with Philip there. I mean, he's not going to get fired this season, and it's definitely because of ownership, which I guess does make sense. You don't want to put a guy in a bad spot as an interim guy with a new ownership group coming in. That's just terrible to put somebody in that position. So I do understand keeping DJ Smith for that reason. But, once again, at the same time, I mean, if you're a new owner coming in, you see this guy, he is one of the better coaches in our history if you look at wins and the record and stuff like that. But, that doesn't really matter. Those are moral victories. If you look at the actual results, I mean, we're bottom 5, bottom 10 consistently in the league. And with a team with guys like DeBrincat and, Kachuk having a career year up there with some of the best talent in the National Hockey League, Claude Giroux performing better than he has in years, point per game player at 34. I mean, there's really no excuse to be where we are right now. And most importantly, as you both have mentioned already in this stream, Ottawa is not only at the bottom of the Atlantic, but they earned being at the bottom of the Atlantic because Buffalo went through a rough stretch as well recently. They've now won 6 out of their last 8 games, and now they're ahead of us by a few points. That's how fast it takes to get to the bottom of the Atlantic. So they've done this to themselves, as usual. And, I can hope that Stützle and Norris coming back can really change things. And I think we still, of course, have a shot here. There's no doubt about it. But, it is absolutely concerning to me, once again, on a game where we were playing the backup goaltender after a couple of days of rest. They still come out and lose by 4 goals. It's just, I don't know what to say.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I got to shout out Liz in the chat, our Game Over Winnipeg host. She said that, referring to DJ Smith, she said it's giving Paul Maurice. Definitely agree with that, and how seeing how the Jets brought in Bonus and it's turned around so quickly for them, it definitely makes me jealous. And just
what do you think about Troy Mann potentially coming?
I was just about to ask.
What do you guys think about that?
Yeah,
I'm curious.
I on me personally, I'm worried about having another rookie head coach. I feel like this team really needs an experienced guy, but I'd be willing to give him a shot, especially if it was in kind of like a mid-season interim basis and see how he does. But if it was like a change in the off season and he's their guy, I think I would be a little bit skeptical just because I think we need a veteran guy in there.
Well, that's pretty fair. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and just that Paul Maurice comparison too. Like I feel like the Jets and the Sens are kind of similar on paper in that you have a stacked top 6 on both teams, and then the bottom 6 is, other than I almost said Kyle Lowry, other than Adam Lowry, their bottom 6 is like just a bunch of guys. Like I don't even know half of them really. Like I barely recognize half of their bottom 6 players, and then I will say their defense is definitely better on paper, although. If it wasn't for the amazing season from Morrissey, you could most people would say before the season that Shabbat is obviously like the best guy out of both defense groups, and then obviously they win the goaltending battle. But it's just when you see what Bonus has been able to do with this Jets team, I can't help but just think that a shakeup is really needed in Ottawa at some point. I was really on the fire DJ Smith train, with that 7-game losing streak. And a little bit after that too, like especially halfway through that California road trip, the first 2 games of that were just completely brutal. And then I was really positive on the last show that I did after that win against Detroit, because they did manage to kind of turn it around for a bit, but these last 2 games are just really disheartening, I think. And I know, like you guys were saying, maybe we won't see a coaching change until after the ownership change. I just kind of wish we could see a bit of a shakeup regardless, but it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah,
No,
it really is.
absolutely. Yeah, sorry. No, go ahead, Philip.
I just wanted to say, like at the start of the season, we said we'll give DJ Bob a 20-game sample size, but I didn't think the season would be that lost in November. So, and even then, they didn't make a move, and Pierre was just kept defending DJ Smith, and now we're like 33 games. It's not. I don't think at that point nothing's gonna happen. I wish it would. Like you said, I think a shakeup is totally needed. But if it fits this offseason, because at this point, if we get a new coach, we would need a pretty big run to actually make the playoffs. So at this point, I think you could wait for this summer and try to find someone with experience and that knows how to win.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely agree. A shakeup is obviously in order. I mean, when you have a team, once again, with all the injuries, whether or not they're injured or not, with a team this talented, with the amount of talent they have, especially in the top 6, that power play is proof in the pudding that this team is offensively gifted. When you have all these positive factors going your way and you're still finding ways to lose, of course you need a shakeup in the room. The issue is, as usual with this team, there's so much happening off the ice that it just makes it obvious there's more to the story than just what's happening on the ice. And that's clearly what's happening here, as you guys have both echoed. So, I mean, Garriock today during the game mentioned that February or March, we might get some news on the potential ownership. So, we'll see. That's near the end of the season anyways. So, it just sucks. Once again, I'm going to cut away from the coaching conversation because, look, we've been sold like magic beans for 2 straight years here. It's ridiculous. This is the second year now where we've been told we're going to be a playoff contender. This is the year we're going to break out. The rebuild is over. We're ready to go. And then it's the same damn story, game after game after game, same season after season after season. And eventually fans are going to get tired of it. So unless DJ Smith goes on a crazy run and makes the playoffs and does some Hamburglar type stuff, I don't know how he sticks around long term. And once again, that hurts because I do like the guy. He clearly is a fun character, but he's not getting results. And this is a business. You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And Lush Dog in the chat says, why not give the new coach half a year to get used to the team? I kind of like that approach, but yeah, again, just with the whole ownership thing, it's going to be tough for that to maybe come to fruition. Although, since we have all kind of been saying we'd like a veteran coach, is there any names that you guys have in mind? Because I've heard the name of Claude Julien thrown around, but other than him, like, I'm not really sure who's out there.
That's actually Barry Trotz, obviously, right?
Right.
I mean, obviously.
Everyone wants Trotz.
Obviously. But if we're actually, that's a great question.
But like, if we're talking about Barry Trotz, he likes to play a very defensive system. Would that work with the Sens defense? I guess it's also with the forwards. I don't know how. I guess he would have to kind of adjust. Of course he would, because it's a completely different lineup. It would definitely be interesting. But he's a guy with a lot of experience. Obviously, he won in his career. He knows how to win and how to be successful. So. Yeah, I think it would be good for the Sens culture.
I think if you're looking for a coach mid-season to bring in, Jacques Martin. Now that's a guy that you can bring in mid-season that knows the organization, knows the city, and would not be in the slightest upset about an interim position with the Ottawa Senators as the head coach. Not only does he, of course, know defensive hockey, he's, in my opinion, one of the best defensive coaches there. So he could definitely help Ottawa's issue there. Now, I don't know if that's a permanent solution, but if you're looking at stopgap options for half a year, Jacques Martin is as best as you can get.
I remember, I think he was an assistant coach for Pittsburgh when they were winning those back-to-back cups. Where is he now? Is he still there?
Let me look that up, actually. It's a good question. Jacques Martin.
I don't think he is. I'm not sure. But like in the meantime, I just want to go back on Troy Mann. and he's
Senior advisor for Kingston. Sorry to cut you off.
okay.
Just
No, it's fine.
OHL.
Okay, yeah. So I think he'd be down for half a season as an NHL coach. That'd be fun, right?
If not, we'll hire one of us. Huh? They'll have to hire one of us.
Yeah, we'll all send in our applications.
What were you
Yeah,
guys
just
doing, Philip?
I just wanted to give a shout out to Troy Mann. We were talking about him not having that much experience, but the way the lineups he's been given in Belleville, like that is hard to actually to coach, to play with. You have so many guys getting called up. I think in the last game against Minnesota, the Belleville were actually playing, and then in the middle of the third, Scott Sabrin got called up. So just like that, he leaves the game. You play for.
Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. You play with 11 forwards for the rest of the game. That's tough. That's a tough guy to lose. And there's so many injuries in Ottawa. There's so many of his key guys like Lucchini and Chartier, his two top scorers going up in the NHL. And next game, you don't even know who's going to be in your lineup. And I think he's been still doing a very good job. So shout out to him, but I don't know if, like, once again, if that experience is going to be good for him to actually help the Sens be a successful team.
Worst case, we get Spartak at the fill in. That seems like a good solution, in my opinion.
Yeah, he needs to talk a bit more though.
Yeah,
True.
they'll
Maybe
need
bring
to
up the
like
whiteboard.
update his mask so that his mouth can move.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and a bit of a topic change here, but I definitely wanted to bring this up tonight. Before the game, this was kind of the only good news that Sens fans got today. There was a tweet from Graham Creech. He said on the Sens pregame show, he asked Darren Dreger about Zub's contract negotiations, and Dreger said that talks have intensified and that it sounds like they're getting real close to hammering out an extension. Now, then later on the broadcast of the game tonight, Bruce Garriott seemed to be a little bit more skeptical as to how close negotiations really are. But I think it's good that we're definitely actually hearing something about the negotiations for a while now, because I'm sure that's kind of the number one thing on every Sens fan's mind in terms of contracts is we need to keep Zub. And the way I want to phrase this question to you guys is, what kind of a contract do you want to see for him? Basically, I'll put it two ways. If you can answer both, is what would you like to see Zub's contract at ideally, and what would be like, say, the most, like the peak for what you would want to see him get?
Well, I'll get the ball rolling, I guess. So I would expect somewhere around 4 to 5 years, something just above a bridge contract. I'd love something around 6 years. I don't want to lock him into 8 years. I'm not really comfortable with that. I think 6 years is a long time. A lot can change, not with him as a player, but within the organization and the depth that you have and the options that you can have to deploy. But I think a 4 or 5 year option gives you options, at least 3 years of control of top four hockey with the Ottawa Senators, and then 4 and 5 year look. If he either regresses or another guy emerges or whatever scenario, you have options that you don't have to keep him. You could potentially move him. And I think contracts like that, are so integral in the cap world that we live in, right? So 4 or 5 year contract. I'm not going to get into money. I'm not going to get into terms. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, it's probably going to be upwards of $6+ million, I would guess. I think it's been reported like that before anyway. So definitely he's going to command $6+ million. But if it's somewhere around 4 to 5 years, I'm very happy with that. 6 at the most. I mean, I see people talking about 7 or 8 years. I mean, I say sign 4, 5, 6 years. It's very unlikely he's going to command more money than he is right now in 4 or 5 years anyways. So if he's still good, you want to keep him around, you can keep him around and extend him in the future.
Yep. I think 4 or 5 years sounds perfect, because I feel like Artem Zub every night is going to, what you're going to get from him. He's just going to be a solid defensive defenseman. I don't think he's going to regress in the next 4 or 5 years. He's not going to get a whole lot better either. He's just going to sustain that solid defensive play. And I mean, for the money, he's got a lot of leverage. I mean, he can just look at Dorion and say, look at your team when I'm not there. Look at the defensive coverage and structure when I'm not on the ice. It is not the same thing, and they are struggling. So I think he's going to get paid. He's definitely going to get some more money than his last 2-year contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so to wrap up this topic, I'd like you both to give a prediction of what you think the contract will be. And I think I'll go with 5 years, $6 million.
I will go 5 years because I do agree it's not going to be past 5. 6.5. We'll pay a little bit of tribute to King Carl.
All right.
That is high. 6.5?
I mean, look at this. All right. I mean, when you look around the National Hockey League, He's a defensive defenseman, right? So that has to be taken into account too.
Right
But
shot.
when you're looking at defensemen like Tyson Barrie, who's terrible defensively, I think he's making $6+ million. Guys like Cody Ceci commanding $4 million+. Artem Zub, if he's asking for 4 or 5 years, locking him down for the prime of his career, he's going to ask for a little bit more, just like Tim Stützle, just like Josh Norris, because in the long run, theoretically, Ottawa should save money. So that's kind of the deal. I'll sign for a bit longer, but you should pay me a bit more, which does make sense. If you're signing for a 2-year deal, probably 5-6 million gets it done. But if it's more than 3-4 years, I mean, I doubt he would sign for less than 6 million. But I mean, hey, who knows, right?
Yeah, and I think we'll give him the money he deserves because of how important he is to this team, and also the market for right shot defensemen. I mean, they're tough to get, and when you get one that is so solid defensively and can play consistently on your top pairing, you need to lock him up and give him the money. So yeah, I do agree. I'll go 4x6.
I like it.
All right. Seems like we're all in pretty much the same ballpark there. Hopefully our predictions are close to accurate, or maybe even if we could get the salary a little bit lower, that would be nice too. But hopefully we see a Zub extension soon, and also hopefully we see him back on the ice soon too, him and Timmy. I think we're getting near the returns for both of them, right?
Yeah, Timmy's supposed to come back potentially even this Thursday against Washington, maybe even Friday, the next game, I think against Detroit. Zub, it's been very quiet on that front. I would expect him to be back within the next couple of weeks because it was supposed to be like a month-long injury with the fractured jaw or whatever. But yeah, we'll see about Zub. Zub, I'm a little hesitant about to say if he's going to come back soon or not, but I think Stützle should be back by the weekend, I'd say.
Yep, and that would be huge. That would really be huge. The way this guy drives the play, he is a major factor in your offense. And also another good news from Bruce Garrioch, I think at the second intermission, Josh Norris could be back as early as January, which would be huge for this team. We were talking about out for the season, and we kind of forgot about him. Like, he's not going to be there, and January seems early. Like, I'm really surprised.
Yeah, me too. That would be a huge boost.
It would be, yeah.
I remember when it was first reported about the injury, he got the second opinion, and then it did say that there's a chance that he could come back mid January. But let's be honest. I mean, shoulder injury is the second major shoulder injury. No one expected that to happen. So, Philip, great point. Bringing him back with Tim Stützle, I mean, regardless of where we're at in the standings, at least the games will be watchable, which is all we can ask for.
Exactly. Sure. We desperately need some help at the center position. I mean, Kastelik and Brassard in your top 9, it's not going to cut it.
Yeah, even if we don't make a playoff run, having all those guys back will at least be a big boost for the team in terms of watchability. And that's where we're going to leave it tonight. But before we go, if you guys have any last words or anything you want to plug, do you want to mention your channel, Brandon?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on YouTube here as well. Sens Talk, been doing it since 2013. If you want to see a quicker recap of the game, I analyze the game, go through the game, each goal for both teams. Just check out Sens Talk. We post post-game recaps after every single Senator game. And of course, post some different content there as well, and on Twitter at @SensTalk_. You may unfollow me. I tweet a lot, but hopefully you'll enjoy the tweets if you do follow me.
Awesome.
It's the opposite. I have your notifications actually, so I got every tweet.
Shout out to you, OG follower right here. OG
Nice.
follower.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
For me, Phil.Sens on TikTok. I post a bunch of different content. It's always different every single day, but I'm gonna do a Sens recap for pretty much every single game. I usually don't miss them. But yeah, just follow me on there. You'll never know what you're gonna get from one day to the other. So
I recommend it. Follow him.
Yeah, I haven't really seen much of the hockey community on TikTok yet. I'll have to check that out for sure.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
All right. And yeah, that's all for tonight. Everyone, thank you for watching. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to SDPN, and thank you once again to Phil and Brandon for joining me. We will be back on Thursday. It will be Charlie bringing you the game against Washington. So have a good night, everyone.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.